One thing that I've noticed over the years that happens a fair bit is that people who've never been to community before or have never done serious sustainable living before, they're coming for the sustainability and this thing called community, and what they get that they're not expecting is this really deep level of core acceptance of themselves as whoever or however they are. Like, people here are so encouraging and appreciative. That's what I want us to spread out in the world, is that people really feeling seen and met and encouraged to be all of who they are.
It's become so civilized here now. I mean, it used to be kind of like wild, but we were all a lot younger and there was a lot more work to do. Dancing Rabbit at the time, everybody was staying in a double-wide trailer across the road. The land had been purchased, but it was winter and nothing had been built. One of the buildings had been started, but that was about all that had gotten done. You know, crammed in with a shoehorn with everyone else. I think there were 8 of us there at the time. We were over here on the land as much as we could be. We used the pole barn, we turned it into an outdoor kitchen. We had an old-fashioned wood-fired cook stove. It was really challenging at first, learning to cook vegan for 35 people with whole foods on a wood-burning cook stove. It was also really empowering because once one learned how to do that, I kind of felt like I could do anything. A lot of the culture was kind of transmitted through song, and so as we were canning green beans, we'd learn different songs or make up our own. We would have 2 or 3 meetings every week. They were 3 hours long because we had to decide everything. We had this plot of land that we held in a community land trust, and we made decisions by consensus and had 6 ecological covenants. And other than that, everything had to be decided.
It was much more a place where you had to just believe. I mean, now people go on a tour and you can show them all these amazing buildings. And so when you say something like, and here's where Main Street, where all the businesses are going to be, that doesn't seem completely ludicrous. In 2000, it was really kind of imagination. We just were in each other's lives a lot more. We all shared this little tiny double-wide trailer across the road that we were renting. Very cramped, very tiny, and we were in each other's stuff all the time in a way that we're just not as much anymore. And there's the good parts of that and the parts of that that are a little sad to let go of. When I first got here, I don't know if we said that much that we were Feminist Ecovillage. It was definitely on the website, but it was definitely a super feminist place. It was very clear. Men clean, men cook, men take care of children, women do construction. Like, if you happen to be one of those things that was not taught how to do those things, we will teach you how to do them and support you to do them. Which, that's like sort of a minor thing of feminism, but it's not, because of the way that gender roles are so pervasive in the mainstream culture and so rammed down our throats, and like, this is what men do, this is what women do, and we just didn't buy that. And I think we still don't buy that in theory anymore at Dancing Rabbit, but it's crept in a lot more.
We don't have any of our founding members living here at Dancing Rabbit. They've all gone on to continue their careers.
I think that with most of the founders, they had done everything they could do, and like, this is their post-college, experiment, and they've all gone on to do really cool things. I think it's a real tribute to what they created that they were able to leave, and Dancing Rabbit is just fine. There was a little bit of a vacuum because they held so much of the vision and so much of the history.
The founders never seemed to want this to be a charismatic leader-led community, and always had a value towards setting things up so that they would continue even after they left. And I think there has been a shift in the culture since they've left. And I think it's interesting that it coincides with Dancing Rabbit turning 18, 18, 19, coming of age, and the last founder left around that 18th birthday time. And so I think there is a sense of Dancing Rabbit getting to define itself more as an adult on its own terms.
We've sort of stepped out of the pioneering phase now, and we're more in the maintaining and growing, and how do we stay true to the values that brought us here while we get bigger, and while the thing that we're here for is becoming so much more accepted in the mainstream.
We all keep talking about how we want to write a book, but then there's the saying that, well, of course we made up the saying, if you write a book about an eco-village, you probably haven't lived at one because you wouldn't have time to write a book. So there you go. I don't know.
The culture here is subtly different in that I think in our larger society, the competition is to, you've arrived when you've got bigger and better and more. And here it's almost I'm more eco if I have less and smaller and reuse.
Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage is designed with a European-style, densely clustered village. So all of our homes are really close to our neighbors so that the walking distance is really convenient. We have our gardens on the outskirts of the village, and then our agricultural, like animal land, on the outskirts of the gardens. So I think of it as a permaculture design on a community scale.
What brought me to Dancing Rabbit initially was a sense of swimming against the current in our mainstream culture. I really noticed the difference of being in a group of people who were really doing something together, being self-aware, communicating clearly, setting boundaries clearly, and treating everyone with the same kind of respect that you want for yourself. It was powerful. When we left after the visitor program and went back home, go away for 2-3 weeks, it always feels good to come home. This was the first time in my life where I did not have that it's good to be home experience. It felt empty.
I was born and raised in Southern California, and I spent 12 years living in Hollywood. I found myself crying every day, just sad and upset about the state of the world and the level of stress that I had in my life and how many jobs I was working. I had a perfectly fine family. I had nice friends and entertaining things to do. And that's right when I felt the most stress in my heart and was feeling like anxiety attacks and pains. As soon as I heard the word intentional community or eco-village, everything in me was like, yes, 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 that's it. Whatever that is, whatever they're doing, that's the way I'm supposed to live. With that much clarity and certainty, I just went for it. I started selling all my possessions, quitting all my jobs. I packed my car and I drove across country with a list of a few places I was gonna visit. As soon as I arrived and walked onto the land, I was like, oh, this is nice. Oh, you're so nice. All the people I met were so nice and compassionate. I really enjoyed that first winter. I moved into a tent in my front yard here in spring. My partner Erin moved here in April also, and by August we had a timber framing workshop with 6 students, an instructor, 2 of our friends, and the 2 of us.
I get up early and go do work in the common house usually for 2 hours or so, to come home and breakfast. We just started homeschooling again this week, so we've been doing school in the morning from 9 to 12, although we kind of have an easier start. We don't really have a start schedule. And then they'll be going to co-op school from 1 to 4, so I'll go back and work furiously. I love all the different activities that I do. I'm in the writers group and we play ultimate frisbee. We go to song circle every week. We go to all the community dinners and potluck, and so I just like having all that. I mean, things that would have taken before, the effort that we would have had to put in something like that before, to go sing songs for an hour and a half on a Wednesday night at 7:30, impossible.
Everyone participates in this community in a lot of different ways. I'm the meter reader and accountant for our local internal power grid. I am the bookkeeper for the Dancing Rabbit Vehicle Co-op, I'm the accountant for our mothership of all co-ops. I am the administrator for the land trust that administers all the leaseholds and deals with the management of the land itself that the nonprofit is located at. I'm on the process team, which helps committees get their proposals through group process. And I've recently been elected to my first term on the village council.
I've done a lot over the years, so there's not a lot here that I haven't been part of at some point. There's a few committees I've never been on and never wanted to be on, but mostly I've been part of things. I've always been very active in the decision making. In the early days, that is one thing that has changed a lot. It was full consensus for everything. And we eventually decided maybe we should have a few committees to make some of these decisions, and then more committees, and maybe we need a committee to oversee the other committees and make sure they're getting what they need. So I was on that oversight committee for quite a while, numbers of times. And now we've moved from full consensus to a representative model, so we have village council. And I've been on the village council. I was on it before, and then I took a little break, and I'm getting back on it. We sort of joke that village council, we go to meetings so you don't have to. I also work for the nonprofit for the community. I'm the communications director, which means I sort of manage our online presence and how we communicate with the rest of the world. I'm also on the conflict resolution team. I do a lot of mediation.
I enjoy doing the outreach, even though I'm not actually on the outreach committee. I will attend events and try to do, talk to people about Dancing Rabbit. I've been on the land use planning and policy committee, which is just dealing with thinking about the layout of the village and future expansion and where to put things and how to build the roads and stuff like that. One of the things we've been working on recently is a wastewater treatment system, because by law we have to set up some kind of wastewater treatment system here because of the size of the village and the number of people that are producing wastewater.
I joined my first committee, so I'm on the Marcy committee, which is Membership and Residency Committee. That's an interesting, just the whole committee experience and getting input from people and decision making and process and all. I'm just barely learning all that, how that all works.
I have something approaching a half a dozen different jobs. I serve on the village council, for which I am paid in the neighborhood of $116 a month. I work pizza nights at the Milkweed Mercantile, for which I am paid $240 a month, roughly. I do order fulfillment for the Fellowship for Intentional Community, which is another couple $100 a month. And I'm paid to help someone in their garden here weekly. I sell feathers online. I sell eggs from the chickens. We sell meat seasonally. In the fall we have meat. $800 a month is probably what our family lives on.
My partner and I make a living by doing a handful of things. Just like when I lived in California, but the things that I do are way more in alignment with what I'm passionate about. I do video production and voiceover work. So I'm able to take some of the skills that I had in California and find a way for them to work in the middle of rural Northeast Missouri. I also make an income by being the innkeeper at the Milkweed Mercantile. For 6 years, the Mercantile has been a privately owned business by Kurt and Aline. This year, since March, we've been having meetings every week to talk about how to turn the business into a cooperative, which means that all of the workers for the cooperative, not only do we make our hourly income, at the end of the year we get to share the profits of the business and choose how we're going to reinvest into that business also.
I'm involved in the formation of the Milkweed Mercantile, transitioning into an actual worker-owned co-op, and I run the grocery store as a private business. As a lot of people here do, I also work online. In my case, I do closed captioning for video.
My husband was a landscaper and I was a teacher, so we both kind of know a lot about our fields, and we're trying to switch that to sell stuff online. I've been selling products, and then I've been guest blogging.
I'm a certified professional midwife. I attend home births for people who hire me within an hour and a half of Dancing Rabbit. I tend to gravitate towards jobs that relate to governance or process, sort of how our decision-making system in a lot of ways. And so I'm currently a member of the Village Council. I've been one of the main members of the process team for many, many years now, so I kind of have a pretty good understanding of how to move ideas through to action and decision here at Dancing Rabbit. I participate on the Dancing Rabbit Vehicle Cooperative DRVC committee to help with the finances and setting our rates for that co-op.
Some of the other ways that I make an income here at Dancing Rabbit are a little less obvious. For example, I garden and I grow so much of my own food. Instead of spending money on food that gets transported from far away, I'm growing a lot of it in my garden, and I know what the soil content is and what kind of nutrients are going into my food. Another thing is that I built my own home. So that saved me an enormous amount of money instead of hiring a contractor to do it.
I've been recently hired as the executive director for the nonprofit, the name of which is the Center for Sustainable and Cooperative Culture. I've also been on the visitor team, which is a committee that handles the visitor program. So I've been really involved for the last 3 years in making the visitor program something that functions more seamlessly and also something that works better for outside folks coming into it. Part of my desire there is to be at the bridge point between Dancing Rabbit and people who are interested in community or interested in living at Dancing Rabbit.
The Apply to Visitors program, that really gives you an idea of everything. There's workshops every day, almost every lunch and dinner you eat at different kitchens around the village, so you get to hang out with people and ask them questions one-on-one and talk to them for hours sometimes. And then if you want to, after that, you can apply for residency. You write a letter of intent, and then you have an interview with questions. The community has 2 weeks to comment on that, and if there's no issues, then you're a resident. After 6 months of residency, you can apply for membership. If you're a member, you can rent land, you have blocking power for votes, and you also pay 2% of your income to the village.
It seemed to us that Dancing Rabbit needed a gathering place, a place for people to stay that didn't involve camping, a place for them to shower and use toilet facilities that wouldn't impact the rest of the community and impact the community building. So we proposed the Milkweed Mercantile. We paid rabbits for labor. We felt it was really important to start getting money into the community. It's been really wonderful. It was really rocky at first, and we still do have challenges. It's tricky to have a public building in a community that feels really tight. What is the balance between living in a fishbowl and being a demonstration community and yet having a life and being private and doing your life? The great part is that our guests are really, really wonderful. It's been really fun for us to meet all these amazing people who come to Dancing Rabbit and want to experience what is happening here. And they can come and they can stay in a straw bale building and shower in rainwater. We're turning the Mercantile from an LLC into a worker-run cooperative. And I'm hoping that it will provide more people with a way to make a living and stay here at Dancing Rabbit and continue to build Dancing Rabbit and grow it and live and work in a way that is in alignment with their values also.
The nonprofit was originally formed as the 501c3 to be the parent organization for the 501c2 land trust that holds the title and is the land trust for the land that Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage is on. The nonprofit does advocacy for sustainability, both by bringing it to the awareness of the population at large through our mailing list, and also through, we have a weekly column that folks write about life at Dancing Rabbit, but also within that is advocacy for sustainability and community. Why would people want to live this way? And so we're sharing that message through our different avenues for communication, and also at the same time having a focus on education. And we bring folks here through the visitor program, but we also bring youth groups here and education groups. We bring school groups that want to come to Dancing Rabbit, and then there's also folks who want to do research. What is the impact of living in this different way, and how does that impact different parts of what might happen in the wider world if more folks chose to live this way?
We've created a pretty complicated system here at Dancing Rabbit. Unfortunately, I'd like to figure out how to make it less complicated, and now that I've gotten used to the system, it's hard to see anything different. The culture that we grow up in outside of Dancing Rabbit in the United States is pretty different than what we strive for here. And a lot of what we strive for here is trying to hear the voice of the group, hear everyone's individual piece, and use that to make a really wise decision that will hold the whole and work for the group. And sometimes we do a good job at that, and sometimes it's hard. It requires really good listening skills, really good skills at bridging, skills at dealing with conflict. Like maybe I have a really different opinion than someone across the room from me, and we might have to deal with hard feelings between us or figure out how to find a place where we can meet. Like there's just a lot of interpersonal dynamics, group dynamics. I think it's kind of fascinating.
One of the things I really appreciate about Dancing Rabbit and intentional community is that we are a self-governing system. I actually have a voice in this community.
Our village council is something of an experiment. It's been running, I think we're in our 5th or 6th year with the village council now. We originated as all decisions were made by the full group by consensus. Consensus is kind of our bottom line operating expectation, whether it's at a committee level or for decisions that need to be made by the whole group. And as we grew, both in terms of population and in terms of infrastructure and the kinds of things that we were trying to do, that became fairly overwhelming.
The village council consists of 7 people, and half of those people rotate every 2 years, and they could re-up for a second 2-year term. It's a council of people that represent the dynamic that exists in this community.
We don't elect individuals to the council, we actually elect a whole slate.
We evaluate those slates and see that each option of people has a balanced group of male and female diversity, of economic diversity, and of who holds what types of skills. I, as a member of this village, if I have some input I want to add to that conversation, I am fully invited to go and be present in that meeting and have a voice. After the village council comes to a decision on a topic, they look at the pieces and the components of that decision, and then they send those topics to the appropriate committee who will continue to work on that project.
Current things that are up right now are gender balance. It's like very slightly male heavy. We've been focusing a lot this year on recruiting females. We have a policy in place that the balance can't be more than 60-40 either way. And so we have a wait list for male residents right now.
Every Sunday we have a WIP, a week in preview meeting. And we get to look at the week that's coming up ahead and talk about things like announcements. Maybe I'm having a block party because it's my birthday and I want to invite all of you. And so I'll make that announcement. Or maybe it's an announcement about friends that are visiting and coming on farm, or rabbits that are going to be off farm for the week, or trips and travel that we're going to go and do using the vehicles. We have 2 vehicles that run on biodiesel. We have a pickup truck, an electric leaf, and a tractor. In order for us to share those vehicles cooperatively, we need to talk about it every week and see who's going where and when.
The vehicle co-op is something that I think is unique among eco-villages too, because a lot of eco-villages that I've been to, people just own their own cars and they don't even think about how much they're using them.
One of the things that I love about living at Dancing Rabbit is sharing vehicles. There's so much in our larger culture that's, freedom is tied to having your own vehicle. Coming of age is licensed to drive and having your own vehicle, and freedom, you can go anywhere at any time and do anything. I still have that. I can still do that. And I don't have the expense and annoyance and maintenance of owning a vehicle. All it takes to make it work is a little advance planning and a slight shift in mindset. So I don't own a car, I don't have to own a car, and I can drive virtually anywhere at any time. 67 cents per mile for the passenger vehicles and 81 cents per mile for the truck. That includes all maintenance, fuel, insurance, repairs, the labor for doing the accounting, and we do some on-farm maintenance.
We have a lot of cooperatives here at Dancing Rabbit, especially food cooperatives. It's one of the biggest ways that we can cook and consume more sustainably. By having a food cooperative, I free up so much personal time where I get to do other things instead of cooking. If I have 6 people in my food kitchen, then I'm only cooking once a week. We order some things in bulk, like getting a whole 50-pound bag of oats, but then things that we don't use quite as often, we have the public market grocery store where my kitchen is able to share bulk items with other food co-ops around here in a really clean environment, and it's easy to access.
I love the fact that I only cook once or twice a week. It's my house, my kitchen, but we have a bunch of people who share that kitchen and we eat together, and so I can just show up most of the week and eat. And I won't know what it is until I show up, but it'll be good.
I eat better here than I would at other places because I know how to cook, but I'm not necessarily going to just do it for myself. I'm committed to cooking about once a week, and then somebody else is cooking for me those other nights. Because of that, we have a whole village full of really good cooks, so the food's always, well, not always, but almost always spectacular.
We just joined the goat co-op, so we're learning how to milk the goats and take care of them. We just joined a homeschool co-op, so we're going to start next week, and it's going to be in the afternoons from 1 to 4, 2 days at Red Earth at one of the houses, 2 days at Sand Hill, and then 1 day here. So it's just kind of everybody's teaching their strength, whatever their passion is.
Something I've experienced this summer is it's just great to have all of this produce available. I've been in a growers co-op, so I'm getting a lot of produce that way, and I have a garden share here in my own garden, and I've got grapes on the vine and peppers in the back, and there's so much more that we can do. In fact, this growers co-op was sort of an experiment this year, and we found out that what I think we found out is that in this village, we're not really farmers, which makes sense because we're living in a town, really. It was hard for us to work actual, slightly larger scale farming activities into our days because it's sort of far away, and it just wasn't as natural of a fit as some of us thought it would be. So it reinforced that we really like gardening and doing it close to our houses. And so we're gonna probably next year refocus there and bring it closer to home. In the growers co-op, we all put in work, and then we just split up the produce. I partner with the food co-op that I eat at, and I bring most of the produce over there. Other people might sell their produce. We have a grocery store on farm where we can actually place our produce if we want to sell it.
Some things that are really amazing steps were us having a microgrid here, getting a microgrid here in our own power co-op. It's called Better Energy for Dancing Rabbit, and it's a power co-op that we have. It's a microgrid that's been set up so that houses and people at Dancing Rabbit can have their power systems either hooked into and feeding into the microgrid, or they can just, if you build a new house, you can just get a hookup. And the power co-op has its own solar panels, transformers, and things like that, and then it is tied into the larger grid here. That's sort of a unique thing about Dancing Rabbit. I don't know if there are other eco-villages in this country or anywhere else that have their own microgrid. It allows us to monitor how much power we use within our community and not just all be tied into the grid and not really thinking about how we're drawing from the grid. Our covenant says we have to put twice the power into the grid that we take from it.
I was going to say everything that can be shared is shared here, and that's not true. There's a lot more we can do. One of the things we don't have that we've talked about having is a tool co-op, so that we share power tools and things like that, but we haven't figured out how to make it sustainable.
I want to see an agriculture cooperative and a large-scale farming cooperative and an alternative transportation cooperative Maybe that looks like electric assist bikes or something.
Agriculture, I think, has been inhibited here because of a lot of our land being in the CRP program, which is like a government conservation reserve program. And it helped us pay off the mortgage, but you sign a contract and it locks the land into a contract for like 10 years.
There are 25 natural buildings here at Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage. That is the biggest collection of natural buildings in the Midwest. We're located in the Midwest because there aren't any building code regulations here. So we're able to experiment with natural building in a way that we couldn't do on the East or West Coast. There's only one cob structure here at Dancing Rabbit because cob is not nearly as insulative as straw bale. If it was located in Northern California or Oregon, it would perform great. But in Northeast Missouri, where we have very severe climates, it requires too much energy input to keep that structure at a comfortable temperature to live in. Green construction is using very conventional looking materials, but they're harvested sustainably. They're very low or zero Vox in the paints that are used. And they're reclaimed items, whether they came out of a house that was being demolished or whether they were just leftover construction materials from an abandoned project. Green construction uses all that spectrum of materials to make a building that is very highly performing, very well insulated, and looks really conventional. A straw bale home is going to have 18 inches of a straw bale insulation, and there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 inches of plaster on either side of that straw bale. Now, as the sun is warming one side of that plaster, there's 18 inches of insulation before it starts to warm the wall on the inside of my house. And so as I'm keeping a cool temperature in here, it's cooling this layer of plaster, but not getting affected by that warm layer of plaster on the other side. A lot of the homes at Dancing Rabbit have earth contact. And that's really important because the earth wants to stay at a pretty constant 55-degree temperature. And so my house is able to stay at a really comfortable temperature as long as I do the manual labor of raising and lowering the curtains every day and opening windows at night. It's such an easy way to heat and cool my house with very little energy input.
Hassan completed this house really quickly. It was completed in under 4 months from when he started, when he broke ground. And he used upcycled pallets and rigid foam for insulation. And then the roof is all timbers from nearby land. And the roof is insulated with rigid foam as well. Then did light clay straw and then natural plaster on the outside. And he's been experimenting with different sorts of natural plaster. And so sometimes our house changes its outer skin from year to year because he's experimenting with a different sort of weather-resistant Elise or some other sort of natural plaster. So it's a bit of an experimentation house, but it's also the first house that he built start to finish, and we've been living in it for the past coming up on 4 years now, and it's been perfect.
I borrowed money and paid Bear to very quickly build my little house called Haven. And it's a green building, so it's conventional construction, but reused material as much as possible. So the wood is reused, but the stuff in the walls, it's not straw or clay or anything like that. It's blown-in cellulose, and same thing in the roof. But the walls are really thick instead of 2x4s most people use. And then natural or green building, often will go 2x6. We went for 2x8. There's a lot of insulation in there. And on the south side, you can't see, there's a giant window that's pretty much covers the whole wall in my bedroom. And in the winter, I get amazing passive solar gain, and so I don't have to heat very much with wood or electric. I can use the sun when it's sunny. Even when it's really, really cold outside, it's plenty to keep me warm in there. When it's cloudy, then I use my tiny little wood stove. It's a Hobbit stove, and it's the cutest thing ever.
We have been up here for 3 years, I think, now. We're off-grid. We don't use fossil fuels in our kitchen co-op. We're a little bit more rustic, a little bit more rugged, Some days I long for a sweepable floor and for pots that don't make everything super, super sooty, and maybe someday we will make those compromises. We are on the agricultural end of town, so our leaseholds form the edge of what in the land use plan is the edge of the residential space. So we are and will theoretically always be on the edge of town. And then there's garden right beyond and ag right beyond. And so since we have animals, it's important to us to be close to the ag space so that we can hear them. And since we have to do chores twice a day, and in the winter it's a bit of a slog carrying water down there through all the snow.
We moved into this house in 2011, so we must have started building it in 2010.
It's an earthen floor, so the primarily clay and sand with enough fiber to hold it together. Chopped straw is what we used for that fiber. And it's resting on a bed of rigid insulation foam over some compacted gravel. When we built in the subfloor, we put in plumbing tubes so that if and when we have running hot water, we have the option of heating the house with the floor tubes. And I've not needed that in the last 5 years. It's been really pleasant with the passive solar gain and with the wood stove that we use for cooking in the cooler months. It's very comfortable.
We moved as a family of 5 into a 570 square foot cabin. Our 3 boys who were accustomed to having each their own separate bedroom and a whole basement play area moved into a single tiny room. We triple bunked them. So there was room for a triple bunk bed and 3 dressers in a row and a little aisle to the window, and that was it. That was their room. So it worked until our oldest started outgrowing. So we contracted with a woman who lives here who's an architect, and we basically pushed a wall out, tore the roof off and back and built up and over. So we essentially doubled the square footage. So again, still a family of 5 with this new spacious home of 1,600 square feet. Building this size does sound small, but when you have so much other shared space available to you, we have the entire common house. It's like we have a whole nother living room, office space, library, kitchen, showers, everything that we could need. And there's Casa, the dance hall, for birthday parties, or my middle son had an art gallery showing there, and the mercantile, and the ultimate field. There is so much that we have access to when we need it. The average at this point is around 200 square feet per person in a building.
We've never tried to be self-sustainable. We'll never be able to grow enough food for ourselves. It's a full-time job. When I came here, I thought I was going to become wise and I would know how to live a sustainable life and all the answers would be clear. What I found instead is that almost everything is gray area. There's so little black and white. Sustainably, even at Dancing Rabbit, is kind of a spectrum. We're kind of on the bougie end of the spectrum. We've got power and a commercial stove and freezers, and other folks choose not to have power in their homes, and it all works. We try to be really respectful of everyone's choices.
Vehicle sharing is one of the things that we do here that is fairly radical in terms of departure from that mainstream culture. The other thing that I often think about is the composting toilet systems that we use as opposed to flushing human waste. And so not only are we capturing the nutrients and keeping those resources on the property, but we're also not fouling drinking water in our waste systems. There's a lot of factor to that, I think, the composting toilet system, especially when it comes time to dump those buckets in the compost bin. When it's my turn to do that, I always, every time I'm out there and I'm dumping, I can remind myself, this is the most radical thing that I do in my life at Dancing Rabbit.
People may have heard of NVC, or nonviolent communication, or matrix dialogue, or have had experience with restorative justice or restorative circles, different kinds of practices that all try to get at those same things. And I think the people here have had a lot of experience with a lot of different models. So there's just a level of personal emotional awareness and not necessarily comfort, but ability to work with emotional content in a de-escalating, productive way that I think makes this community pretty special.
There have been other things, less important things, just disagreements over the direction to take the village, or buildings to build, or how we should do things, or who should be here, or who gets to decide. I mean, all those things are really complex and complicated. We try to be very intentional and mature, but a lot of times, emotions get really hot, and we do our best. We're all really committed to communicating and doing as well as we can, even if I think, like, as an individual, I don't ever do as well as I would like to. I leave a meeting and think, golly, why did I say that? But we also try to remember that everyone has good intent, and no one here is trying to be malicious or anything other than positive. We're all working through our shmoo.
A lot of our foundational agreements are around living sustainably. Spirituality is not a part. There's no formal anything, formal agreement, formal anything about a spiritual relationship within the community or people participating in that in any way. One of the things that I think is pretty neat about Dancing Rabbit is that we all live independently yet in community. Like, we're not income sharing, we all have to figure out our own ways to make it here, and we all bring our own gifts and teachings and sharings. And so there are probably people here who identify with a number of different faiths or religions or spiritual backgrounds, and there might be some groupings of people that do things together. It feels like it's still a part of our community, but you can move here and not buy into that or participate in that, and that's fine.
When Tamar Friedner passed away, maybe 6 years ago, that was the first time that we had ever dealt with the death of a community member. She's actually buried here. Her parents are incredibly gracious, so that when she was dying in Massachusetts and told her parents, I want to be buried at Dancing Rabbit, we all went to work, and everyone took a different part of the puzzle and worked on how to make that happen. That was really, really, really hard, and we learned so much from it. There's a lot of growth from it. It was really, really hard.
One of the elder members of our community, Dennis, died this summer, and he was ill for a number of months before he died. Our community came together in such a big way. We had pretty great systems in place, some liaisons that checked in with his partner Sharon every day, found ways to support them.
I would call it an initiation point for the community, and having that sense of being able to both be present at the passing of someone, but also take responsibility for what happens after that point of death, and co-creating their funeral and their celebration of life, and also where that person gets laid to rest. I kept saying at the time, oh, this is the silver lining to death, is the level of connection that can happen with the human beings that I'm next to and experiencing this with. And I don't think I would have experienced that if it had been in a different setting as much.
I've lived here long enough that I feel like I have really deep connections with a lot of people who live here. They feel like family, and there's a whole story that goes along with my relationship with every single person that lives here, I feel like, and it just feels so deep. And to live in a place where I have that depth of connection on a daily basis.
I really like the pace of life here. It's very relaxed. I feel like I get plenty of sleep, and I I'm not rushing around a lot to get to work and to do this thing and then get to this other place. And the thing that I think living here that has been most beneficial for me that I doubt I would have experienced living elsewhere is the challenge that the people around me present to become a better person. And so personal growth work has been a really valuable piece of living here at Dancing Rabbit for me, that I think before I came here, I was pretty sure I was perfect. Like I knew exactly what was going on, and everyone else was wrong. And so I feel like I've come a long way, and the only reason I've done that is with the help and the proximity of so many other people that are interested in thinking about those things in the same way.
It's a pretty amazing place to be a family, in that we both work out of our homes. We both work here at Dancing Rabbit. I have to leave for births, but I'm not gone much. So we're with Zane all the time, we're together all the time, and then he has this like wider community of adults and kids that care about him and look out for him and play with him and interact with him regularly, and it's pretty amazing. I think our lives outside of here, I don't think our family would feel as connected and strong.
My favorite things about Dancing Rabbit are being more connected to the natural environment and more connected in more varied ways with the people around me. I get to know different sides of the human beings that are here, and they also get to know those different sides of me. And having relationships with the trees and getting to see how the moon changes in its different phases is something that I didn't experience as deeply in other places. And it's beautiful to watch what happens in terms of the natural environment and the human environment when we have that longer sustained relationship over time.
I think my favorite thing about Dancing Rabbit is getting to see the full group come together. When I see all 50 people that I live with and that I love in a full circle together, maybe we're holding hands or singing a song or eating a meal together, or we're in a weekly meeting together where we're discussing topics and tactics of how to get the week to flow smoothly. I love feeling the energy of that whole group being together. I love looking around the room and remembering all the qualities of why I love those people.
One of my favorite things about Dancing Rabbit is that I don't have any kids of my own, but that phrase, "it takes a village," is really true. I mean, the kids run around here like they're feral, and it's so fun.
There's these things we all agree to, these covenants. Yes, I will do those, I'll be a member. But we do them in really different ways. So there's a lot of different ways to explore those and ways to go deeper with it and things to figure out and mistakes to learn from. I have never lived anywhere 16 years, ever. I have never seen a tree grow from me planting it to it being over my head. I've never held a baby and still know them 10 years later. I'm gonna cry because it's so awesome. Aurelia is 10, and I mean, I've known her entire life. I eat with her every day. So for me, a lot of it is the people and the kinds of people that come here and want to base here and want to root here. And even if I don't feel really connected with them, or I don't feel like we've got a lot in common, in some ways, we've got this in common. This is our space, this is our land, we're trying to do this crazy thing together. And I think that's really awesome.
One of the things that I liked about Dancing Rabbit is that there is land, and you can rent land and have access to agricultural land, which is something that I was looking for when I was looking for a community. Another thing that I really like about Dancing Rabbit is just the ability to share resources with other people, like having like-minded people around. I think that's sort of a big key.
I love that I'm able to take a crack at living a lifestyle of my choosing. I feel less forced to make compromises in my values. I feel like I have a really direct connection with where almost every aspect of my basic needs comes from, and that is so hard to figure out there. I love having access to land that I wouldn't otherwise have. I could never afford to own 280 acres. I love being able to build my own house, even though it wouldn't meet codes in most places. I really love feeling empowered to create this culture. I love serving on a lot of committees and being on the village council. And when a sticky wicket comes up and we're like, wow, what is the right thing to do? It feels great to be able to decide, like, what does my ideal culture do in this situation? Like, making a culture that works and is sustainable feels so rewarding to me.
I love being able to have a committee meeting and then go work in the garden for 2 hours and then go jump in the pond and then take a nap and then do more work. I mean, just the rhythm of my day is much more natural. It's not a commute, 9 to 5, commute, try to relax fast, you know, and then go to bed and toss and turn and be anxious. I feel so much calmer. My favorite thing about Dancing Rabbit is also the thing I struggle with the most, and that's the people. We live and work so closely and so intimately, and people are open about their feelings, or we're vulnerable with each other. We get support from each other. It's like family. Part of it is because you can't just blow them off. You can't just shut them out of your life. You can't just ignore them. And if there is somebody you have trouble getting along with, you still have to work with them in decision making or talking about finances for the budget for the nonprofit. And maybe the worst thing actually isn't the having to get along with the people that you struggle to get along with, whether it's just how your brains work or how you're wired or how you think or what, doesn't matter. We get so many amazing people come here through the visitor program, through some of the courses like the permaculture design course that's held here annually, or they move here as residents and they're here for a year or two, and then they move on elsewhere, either because this wasn't the right place for them, or they're in their wanderlust years, or whatever it is. Getting attached and connected and close to so many people who then move away. That's hard.
I can think of a couple of things that I would change about Dancing Rabbit, even though I love it so much here. I don't like it when people leave. I fall in love with my neighbors, and it hurts my heart so deeply when they move away. I also would change the size of our village. I want more people to live here. Another thing I might like to see different about Dancing Rabbit is its location. I understand why we're located in such a rural, rolling hills and prairie and northeast Missouri, but if we could be closer to a big city so that there was a population that our farmers could sell our produce to and our artists could sell their wares to, that would make a huge difference in our economy here.
I would really like a cottage industry here, something that people could just show up and have an income and just say, okay, I'd like to work 6 hours a day or 8 or whatever, or 6 hours a week or 20 hours a week, and there's something going on they can just kind of plug into.
I'd love for there to be more people. Our population sort of has always been kind of up and down with a general upward trend, and we reached a peak at one point of, I think, maybe 75, and then we went pretty far back down. And I would love it to be more diverse in every way that you can imagine, and I'm not sure how or when or if that will happen, mostly because of the outside where we live. It's very, very conservative, very, very rural, and so a lot of people don't want to live this far away from being able to get to their families. One way that we have gotten more diverse is we have more queer people here, which is great for me. I'm bisexual. That was one of the things I despaired of, is ever meeting any queer women here, because not that many of them come through, but more are coming. I would make us much closer to an ocean and some mountains, or at least a great big river, and closer to better restaurants.
It feels really white. and it also feels really hetero. I'm gay. And we do have some diversity in our village, but it's not enough, and I don't feel like I have the social scene here that I'm used to. I'm having to develop a new one, and And it's northeastern Missouri, it's pretty rural.
I like having the community close by, but sometimes it's a little insular and you can feel like you're seeing the same people all the time, and we're so far away from any place where you can meet new people and just maybe go to a party and see people you don't know.
The thing that I would like to see change, I think we are moving toward actually, is both the community trusting the village council and the village council trusting itself, and trusting that sense from the community that they can actually make decisions and feel comfortable in their own authority.
My vision for the future of Dancing Rabbit is that the sustainability scene in terms of physical sustainability gets stronger, and we get more grants and possibilities to actually test some of the sustainable technologies that people have tried and want to try on here. My vision is also that we continue to grow in terms of the interpersonal relationships. That work happens in men's group, but it's also started to happen through the matrix process training that we brought in and these other tools in community that have made our interrelationships stronger. So figuring out how to navigate interpersonal dynamics with more vulnerability, with more depth, with more compassion and more desire for connection, and really bringing that desire that I think most humans have for connection, being able to bring it into fruition in a way that's really beautiful.
I definitely see it as a large, thriving village with lots more people, lots more stuff going on, little neighborhoods that are maybe a vegan neighborhood or a pet-free neighborhood, and that we become much more well-known and even more of an amazing place for people to come and visit and see what we're doing and take what they can back with them.
The founders envisioned this as a 500 to 1,000 person community. I'm not married to it being that big, but it sure would be easier to manage the infrastructure and make our common things more affordable if we had a few more people. I'd like to see it be twice the size that it is now.
My vision for the future of Dancing Rabbit is a thriving 800, 1,000 people, where we have the critical mass to sustain services that we currently have to go outside of this very local area for.
We're just looking for people, I guess, that have good skills that could be helpful in us building our community in whatever way that is. I think that creative entrepreneurs would be good. People with some established source of income, I think, would be good. It's always good to come here, I think, with some kind of setup for income.
It certainly seems from my perspective that more and more people are feeling the desire and the hunger for living in a way that's more connected. Connected with themselves, connected with each other, and connected with the earth. Dancing Rabbit could benefit the world by showing what it's like to live both in physical, interpersonal, and inner sustainability, and that you don't have to give up one to get another of them, that actually sustainability requires all three to be functioning at its highest level.
I am profoundly grateful to have been able to raise my children in this community. My growth and development in parenting could not have happened outside of this community.
Being here at Dancing Rabbit encourages me to think about what decisions and choices am I personally making in my life today? What are the impacts of those choices on the wider world? And how can the choices that I make a better world for other people?
I think the most important thing to me about community and sustainability is that people find a way to make it work for them in their locations.
Community's hard. It's so hard. But it's also, we're all here because it's also really rewarding. We've got 40 people who have our backs.